Welcome to WorkFast.tv. I'm here with Shel Israel, and this show it started about 3 years ago, and let me just tell you the story about where the impetus of this show came from. I was over in Ireland, in Cork, Ireland, with Tom Raftery and Donica Cam. And Donica works as a developer for WordPress, or Automatic, which is the company that makes WordPress, the blogging tool I use. And we were walking around, and we went and kissed the Blarney Stone and had a great time. And at one point during our talk, he turned to me and goes, "So what's Matt Mullenweg like?" And Matt's the guy who runs WordPress and runs Automatic, and he was WordPress's top developer. And it became clear, wait, you haven't met him yet? And I said, no, I'm meeting him next week for the first time. I've been working for him for a couple months. And that was when I understood that the world of work was changing thanks to the internet. And that leads to this show. This show is all about how work is changing. I mean, most of us, when I look at an airplane, I travel a lot, and when I look at people on the airplane, most people are using Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office, Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, and they don't understand that there's a new world of work that's taking shape right underneath us with new tools. In fact, I'm broadcasting live on my camera, my little cell phone, my little camera here. I do cell phone videos on the web, and I talk with people on the web, and we use Google Docs and spreadsheets to plan this show. There's a new thing happening in work, and we're going to explore that. And today I'd like to introduce my co-host, which we wrote a book together, and we were writing a book together back when we did that, didn't we? So.
Yeah, well, you were bopping all over Europe and meeting cool people in Ireland. I was staying home alone in the dark, working on Naked Conversations. And what was interesting and applicable to what we're doing here at WorkFast is that you and I didn't see each other for 3 months. Yep. And you just kept moving around, and we were using a combination of technologies, half of which are now obsolete, to stay in touch, to read, to edit, to collaborate and argue. And in the end, we wrote a pretty good book. And it was that experience that kind of got us to the vision, which is now WorkFast. Yeah. The other thing that got us there is stuff that happened in the back rooms at PARC, formerly Xerox PARC, the Palo Alto Research Center. It was there where there's not one of you out here, not one person watching this show who is not using and has not used tools of productivity first invented in PARC. Our guest today is Mark Bernstein, the center director and the president of PARC. He's been there for almost 30 years, and he can tell you better than me some of the things that were invented there. What was invented there, Mark?
Thanks.
And
for
welcome
having me.
To the show.
It's exciting. This is
Sorry.
exciting.
Yeah.
To your point, Xerox PARC was set up to create the Office of the Future for Xerox, and it was situated at the other end of the country from corporate headquarters to really focus on the kinds of technologies that you're talking about here, the convergence of communications, computing, and electronics that was really going to change the work environment. So over the course of, I guess, the first 10 or 11 years, what we know today as the distributed computing environment was invented. So the Ethernet is basically what connected it all. Mail servers, file servers, laser printing, which was invented there, word processing programs, Bravo, which was the predecessor to Microsoft Word that you mentioned. All sorts of the guts of what creates computing today, including object-oriented programming, and of course everyone's favorite, the pull-down menus of the graphical user interface.
Yeah, the GUI is what most people ask you about. Let's get that question out of the way. Mm-hmm. You were there when Steve Jobs walked in with his briefcase and walked out with the GUI interface, which tell us about
That's
that.
one characterization, yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah,
what really happened?
Well, it is an interesting story, and it's been told from several different perspectives. Xerox had an investment in Apple at that time, and there was a request for Steve and a couple of his folks to come over and visit PARC and see what was going on. They come over to see the small talk group, which had was responsible for developing the GUI, and so that's where he saw it, and it was an immediate, I get it, from his perspective, and I think it really had a deep impact on how he thought about what was going to be the dominant man-computer interface for the next couple of decades.
What is happening in the world of work today? I mean, that's what this show's about.
Yeah.
What are you seeing? I mean, you invented almost every tool that we use on modern computers, or not you, but the people who work at the lab that you run.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
What are you seeing them invent today that might change our world of work in 10 or 20 years, like you did back in the 70s
Yeah,
and 80s?
that's a great question, because if you look at what we did in the 70s and 80s, it really was a transformational change. It was the creation of this whole platform of distributed computing. With the internet, now that distribution has now multiplied to another dimension, if you will, where it is global. It is time independent. So there are all sorts of technologies that have grown up around the web that enable collaboration, that enable people to do things that were literally and figuratively impossible 20, 25 years ago. So it really is, we're in the midst of another sea change right now around work particularly.
Yeah, last night I was in Adobe, which is one of the companies that started basically in your lab.
Yeah, Larry and Chuck. Yeah.
And I've been on the Acrobat betas for a long time. I was on the Acrobat 1.0 beta, and they were showing me the new Acrobat.com.
Yeah.
Now they have the ability to do live video conferencing on an Acrobat document, and have this live collaboration that just blows me away. I mean, I remember doing a lot of PDF documents back in the 90s with our magazine, and they were always static things.
Yes.
They never were collaborative.
It took a long time to create, and yeah.
So what kinds of things are you seeing your researchers use or develop that are different than what the office suites that we know today?
One of the areas that we're focused on for Xerox has to do with this notion of live documents, about documents that are continually updating themselves, providing current versions to everyone who is interacting with the documents, but also getting at the source of information and related sources of information that sort of augment what the document can become. So it's dynamic in the sense that it's constantly connected and constantly being interacted with folks. So you end up with a kind of a real-time information vessel in the document.
Yeah. What do you want to ask?
I was just a follow-up to that. Has the boat left the dock in terms of Word? I mean, we all have come to know, and it's the devil we know is MS Office, but are we now moving to a connected way of being more productive without the Microsoft Office suite?
I sure hope so. I think,
us too.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you are grounded in a desktop application where the document only exists for you in front of you, then you're missing out on what's possible. And so I think you are seeing more and more tools that are really, particularly with the younger generation of workers, some of them have never seen Word. That to me is a blessing, because they're not constrained by that metaphor for how you contain information. So, you know as well as I do that the generation today is about instant information, about instant communication, and whatever tools enable that is, I think, what are going to be forged into the word of the future.
One of the problems with this new world of work is that we're overloaded. I mean, I'm watching Twitter and friend feed and a Kite chat room right now, and my email that's flowing in, and I just can't keep up anymore with email particularly.
Sure.
Some of these tools, I mean, Adobe told me about a customer that was using the new Buzzword tool, which is the new word processor. And in the old way of doing collaboration, I would do let's say a press release, right? And I would work on it, and then I would email it around to 10 people and get it for approval or for edits or for updates. That takes 10 emails, right? One time, 10. And then people would zing it around, and all of a sudden you have 20, 30 emails in your inbox that just don't really tell you where to look in that document. It's very unproductive.
Exactly.
The new world of work is put a note right on top of that document, or change the document in live time like we did with our script while we were working wherever, right?
But the script, we did that last night on a different technology.
Yeah. In your lab, how are you seeing your workers deal with the overload? Are you seeing people come up with new tools, new technologies, or using things like wikis or blogs or just Twitter to change the overload problem?
Yeah, I think there's two problems in there, right? One is the multiple channels of information that you're trying to integrate and tap into. The other is the fact that you've got lots of useless information that is accumulating, where if it's more than one version old, it's really pretty useless. And so you've got two kinds of problems that our researchers are focused on. And the first one is really about context. Okay, so what am I doing? What are the top tasks that I'm engaged in right now? And what's the most important information that I need in order to engage that task and get the work done? And so, part of that is a little bit of a lot of inference modeling that takes place, both on the observation of the task by the system that you're interacting with, as well as things that are operating on the network. The second problem is really going back to this live documents, the activity updating of documents, where you really are only going to look at the one that is current right now. Everything else just kind of moves to the background and is, relegated to second-class citizen, and so those are the two approaches that we're taking in our research to try and overcome the overload. Fundamentally, we're just getting started, in terms of both the amount of information we're going to have to deal with, and the complexity of the tasks that are associated with all those streams of information.
Mark, let me take it in a slightly different direction. Robert and I, he's the shiny objects guy.
I can
I'm
tell.
the culture and doesn't he clean up?
He really does. He really does. This is a new look for you.
Yeah.
123 years.
I always have the latest gadgets, right? Yeah.
But a necktie? That's so retro.
Yeah,
But seriously, one of the things that's amazing to me about PARC is you employ people, mostly PhDs, about 110 of them, from 46 countries. And how does that impact your culture, and how does technology come into making a cohesiveness to your culture?
Well, the technology is what creates the coherence inside of various disciplines. One of the things about PARC is that it is very diverse, not just in terms of the researchers that are there, but the breadth of disciplines that we have. We have everything from physicists who are focused on the structure of electronic materials, to ethnographers who are studying how people interact with technology, and everything in between, linguistics, computer science. So that diversity and the way the community interacts with each other inside that diversity really makes the global diversity element pretty easy to manage, and it really is the shared interest in problems and the shared interest in discipline that makes that.
Yeah. One of the fears that the managers at Xerox had back in the early 80s or late 70s was that the technologies invented in the lab would do away with their business model, right? Which they were a copier company back then.
Right,
they thought, oh man, computers are going to make a paperless office, and we're going to go out of business, or we don't understand this world, right?
That was the big part, was we don't understand this world.
But one of the fears was that this was going to create a paperless office, and it actually didn't. It created more paper.
Absolutely,
didn't it?
yeah. Well, I think the internet has probably been the biggest influence on the use of paper over the last 10 years. I mean, people are printing out emails just because they can't sit and sort, right? They have to be able to do that when they're traveling, and printing was
sort of like we were using paper cards to sort.
Exactly. And if you look at the actual use of paper in the office, about 45% of it is used in less than a few hours. That it's printed out for its purpose, and once that purpose is met, it's no longer useful. So that's one of the projects that you saw when you were at Tech Day.
Tell me about the
transient paper.
Tell me about that paper, because it was pretty interesting to see it. Tell me what it did, because the viewers didn't see what I saw. So.
Yeah. Well, the notion here is that you're able to print paper print on paper, and the image will last for a finite amount of time, and then the paper is reusable again. And the notion is that this does a couple of things. It makes the optimum, utility of paper. It's green, and it's also economical because you can reuse the paper over and over again. But the research of being able to make images appear and disappear is one part of it. Now we're in the midst of trying to figure out what's the right business value proposition with the form factor for a printer of this type.
Yeah.
Let me drill down on that, because PARC is getting into environmental technologies a lot, and so am I. I'm very interested in all things green these days.
Yeah.
But the issue is, to have massive adoption, green technologies must increase productivity, because that's what business is about.
That's right.
What are you working on, and how will that increase productivity moving forward?
That's a good question. I think that if you look at productivity from a green perspective, you're talking about getting the same by using less, or creating an ecology that's sustainable around a particular aspect of technology use or energy use, materials use. What we've done is tapped into the passion of the researchers, who really feel very strongly, as most people do these days, about making a difference. And so they're looking at where are there problems where we can make a difference, and that's what's driving the agenda.
Can you give us some previews of coming attractions?
Well, we have some things that we've already done and been public about. The water filtration project is one that we've just gone public with, and we're talking with potential partners in being able to commercialize that technology. We worked with Sole Focus, who came to PARC a couple years ago as a two-person team and left after about 16, 18 months with 50 people and $60 million of venture capital in the bank, and they're doing very well now. We've got a couple other spin-outs that we're in the works on that'll be visible later this year, that are focused in the PV space, the photovoltaic space, being able to increase the efficiency, which is the name of the game for photovoltaics. It's been on a very shallow curve of increased efficiencies, and we think there's some breakthroughs that are in the offing. And I think there's a lot of people focused in that space, looking at taking new technology approaches to these sort of core green technologies and really being able to accelerate the kind of progress that's needed to make them commercially viable. Because you're right, ultimately it's about being able to generate equivalent amounts of energy for less consumption of natural resources and at less cost.
So let's switch over to some audience questions, because I've been using some of these tools to talk to an audience. Twitter, I've been using Twitter and FriendFeed, and got several questions from around the world last night. Mitchell Vandevort asked, what's the coolest thing you are working on that we will see, say, in the next 5 years?
Gosh, there's a lot to choose from. I think the three things that I hope we see that I'm really excited about, two of them you saw at Tech Day. One is the ability to detect cancer in the bloodstream. I think that has a tremendous opportunity for being able to detect cancer early and being able to do something about it. The other area I think is clean water. If you look at the social ills of the world, many of them are focused on just having the access to clean water around the world. I think that those are both important. The other one is focused on the area that we talked about earlier that is fundamental, which is context-based information delivery and access. And the whole set of services, and they're not just going to be from PARC, we hopefully are going to be thought leaders in that space. But I think there is this awareness now that information needs to find you. And how do we enable the network intelligence to help us manage that information and keep it close at hand and push it out gently when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
I don't know about Ted's a question about the mother of all demos, so you take that one.
Well, that was referring to Doug Engelbart, who worked with the
Yes.
lab, right? He didn't
Yeah.
work
Yes.
directly in the lab.
Yeah,
but
he worked at PARC.
Yeah.
He worked in
Oh, he did?
collaboration with folks
he
at
invented
PARC.
the mouse at SRI.
At SRI,
right?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was part of the.
He's an
mother of all demos.
awe-inspiring guy.
Oh, he is.
really
He
is.
He's still my favorite interview that I've had. But
he's just wonderful.
part of that mother of all demos was a chording keyboard.
Yes.
And he still believes in that, right? But maybe the question could be broadened. What kinds of input devices or input methodologies do you see changing? Because obviously right now most of us type on a keyboard or type on a little BlackBerry or something like that.
Yeah.
And we've seen what Microsoft is doing with the touch computer, the touch desk, or the Surface computer. What are you seeing in terms of changing how we interact with these tools?
I think a lot of it is going to be based on gestures. It's a combination of touch and natural human interaction, whether it's maybe the eye gaze and expression on the face. I think there's a lot of work that's being done to try and characterize intent. That people have just by observing their human behavior. So I think that's a very interesting field. Clearly, voice is going to get there first. I mean, it's a difficult problem, but I think that the need for it, given multiple languages, and the fact that most people have a voice, makes it a very common mode of interaction with machines.
Yeah, lots of people around the world are listening to us live right now. It'd be really interesting to have a machine that translates us
Yeah.
from English to Chinese or English to Farsi or whatnot.
There are at least 6 companies working on that technology. What's interesting is every one of them have a human element in it, because machine learning
Needs to be assisted by humans.
because it lacks common sense.
Yeah.
I have to upstage our viewers for a second. There's one question that I wanted to get in, and that is, you've been around for all this time, you've seen all these great products. Is there a work trend? Are there elements of new products that come to market that you can look at and say, that will improve productivity, that'll improve people's lives? And if so, what are those elements?
Yeah, I think the Adobe example is a great one. The notion that you actually have a multimedia distributed collaboration technology that's actually built into the fabric of the content, right? And so I think if you look at what that short circuits, there's probably about a half dozen technologies that would have to be assembled in order to enable that. So I think, to your point, we talked about the proliferation of all these devices, all these internet devices and communication devices. I think that you're going to see these eddies where all the technologies come back in and recombine in interesting ways in order to enable new kinds of functionality, and I think that's a great example.
So, do we have one more question from the viewers that you want to take?
Oh yeah, I thought you were. This is from Greg Lato, L-A-T-O. What is Mark's view of PARC's role in the technology innovation engine of today's Silicon Valley? Not many have PARC key roles in the wider industry.
Not many people know about the key roles.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, and do you see that as a problem? And
Well, I think getting mind share in Silicon Valley is something that is a challenge, but that's not a priority for us. I think that what we're focused on since we've spun out is trying to create some powerful information technologies, working to create Xerox's future, but then on our own being able to take our competencies and create interesting solutions to problems that can engage the rest of Silicon Valley, can engage the venture community, can engage partnerships. And I think where we're doing that, we don't need any publicity. I think it's the reward from the partnerships that will yield whatever they yield in terms of publicity. But I'm very happy with the progress we're making.
yeah, when I visited the lab with you, you showed me a bunch of mobile portable devices. Are you still continuing to innovate there, or look at how we're going to use cell phones?
Yeah,
to
I mean
get work done?
that's one of the key challenges of working in the information space is what do you choose as a platform set of technologies, and you look at the the internet devices that are starting to be generated now, and where's the convergence of cell and Wi-Fi, and where do you get this ubiquitous connectivity? What's going to be the dominant platform there? It's going to be a combination of your camera, your iPhone, your laptop. All those things are going to converge. So, you're thinking more about the functionality that is represented in each of these devices, and have kind of a virtual platform in your mind when you start to think about the problems, framing the problems and constraining the problems.
Yeah.
We're starting to go a little over, so this is the last quick question.
We're over already?
I know, it's gone so
Time
fast.
flies when you have a good guest.
And we have lots of questions
You've been a
flowing
great
in. We'll talk
question.
about that.
Okay, you've got more coming, but that'll be Robert and you and
Okay.
the people out there.
Okay.
But Luke Harvey Palmer wants to know why PARC was created, and have you achieved your goals?
Well, Xerox PARC was created to invent the office of the future. Game over. I think
that's been done.
I think it's been done, right? And it's clear and present. I think that PARC's goal today is very different from that, and it is about being able to be technologically innovative inside a research culture that has to be business savvy. It has to understand the connection between technology value and business value. And we're making a lot of progress on that. I'm very happy with where we are.
Mark, you've been a great first guest. Thanks for
Absolutely.
getting us off to
Yeah.
a good start.
This is great.
Thanks. And we're going to hang out here, right? So let's talk a little bit about what goes on after the show.
We will, but first I want to say who our next guest is.
Excellent.
We will be moving to a Friday slot, 10 a.m. Pacific every Friday. Next week we will have Ismail Galimi, who is the founder and producer of Office 2.0, the conference that comes closest to what this show is trying to do. He's an entrepreneur himself, and he's a high-altitude aviator, which can be elevating. So now, tell us about the chat room, Robert.
Well, let's talk about that, because he also has the best database of all these new tools that are coming out.
We're bringing him on so that we can get some leads for the show.
But
we admit it.
that's what one reason we had you on, Mark, is to talk about where we've been and where we're going. Because you invented all these tools. I mean, you PARC invented all these tools. And
Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I can't imagine.
All in all, yeah, it's been, I think, a positive influence.
And so we're using these tools now to interact with an audience live. I've been watching questions come in all during the show while we're live. We have to go in about a minute or so. But after the show, we're going to be on kite.tv/Scobleizer, and we're going to be taking people's questions right there live, and continuing the show in using these new tools rather than the older 3-camera shot that we're here in Revision 3 Studios in San Francisco, which is really great. By the way.
This one time I won't be there for the live chat, but in the future I will, but you won't. I'm sorry.
But I can be on the other end.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. We should also thank our sponsor. And we
Absolutely. Thank you, SAP.
Because SAP lets us do this and go around the world and meet interesting innovators and get people like you on the show. Which
Their
is really
labs
great.
are right down the street from PARC.
Yeah, just next door, almost. So.
And the reason I can't be here is I'm going down to SAP to talk about community forming with a group of SAP third-party developers.
Cool. So what's coming up for the next 7 weeks? Give us a taste, because we have some really astounding guests coming up.
Yeah, but boy, you're asking me at a tough moment. I forgot all about that.
Well, you have an executive from Google.
We have people from Best Buy coming in who will be telling us about Blue Shirt Nation and a little bit about Geek Squad, who started building a community by playing games in the back room. We have your former boss from Google. You can tell us about Vic.
Yeah, he's the gadget freak of all gadget freaks, and he runs all sorts of teams, from the open social team to the mobile teams that are building like Google Calendar and stuff for mobile devices. We have David Allen.
David Allen, the awesome David Allen. Yeah.
And we're going to talk about how to make your life more productive with all these overload problems. So we're going in, and thank you for joining us. And what's our?
Oh, now get to
Get
work.
back to work.
Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3.
Now get back to work.
We did it right the second time.